put this on silent here.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Just put this on silent so don't interrupt. We're recording this, right? Because this is like the perfect intro.
Yeah, for sure. Just us completely slacking off. I'm sure
Did
anyone...
you turn off your phone! Yeah, I just did. It's off.
Famous words of nobody in a movie theater.
No, they're like, even the grandmas don't get it.
It's fucking weird. I don't understand.
Grandmas should not go to movie theaters if they can't respect the rules.
Well, funny thing, my grandparents, they wanted to see Death on the Nile just because they liked it so much, but they wanted to come in like after the trailers, and I just sat there and went...
Why don't they want to watch the trailers?
Because of how loud they are. And like my parents are well past their 80s.
All right,
so.
well, that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Okay.
Hell of a way to start off an intro for a movie that
turn back on my phone. No, just kidding.
For a movie that is incredibly hard to talk about for a variety of different and mostly pretty fucking pointless reasons. What is going on, guys? I'm Tyler.
I'm Jim.
Josh. Hi, Jim. Hi, Josh.
Yeah,
whatever.
I got a J name. That's the important thing we're taking away from this.
Yes, and we are here to let you know that Terror on the Prairie is NoPerfectMovie. And it stars Gina Carano and Cowboy Cerrone as the McAllisters who moved to Montana in 1880s Old West to try and build a better life for themselves.
I love Home Alone. The McAllisters are cool.
I can't believe that they named it the McAllisters and they are home alone in the midst of all this chaos. That just sounds so bizarre. But long story short, Carano is by herself with her 2 children while her husband is out of town, where a gang of Confederate outlaws led by Nick Searcy are approaching and trying to invade this house looking for him. So she has to use her wits, willpower, and a shitload of ammunition to defend her home and her family. Now, when did you actually first hear about this movie?
You told me I should watch it, and it was a Western, so I did.
Exactly, and
that's what I did.
While we never openly talked about it on your channel, we mentioned a couple times that we're
gonna watch the movie, right? Because you said we were gonna watch the movie, so I did.
Well, I asked if you wanted to.
Oh, I'm into watch movies. That's what I do.
And plus, here's the thing: when I first heard that Daily Wire was going to start making movies as like a pushback against the left and Hollywood, I assumed, like a lot of people, that it would just be another series of Pure Flix films that were terrible and low quality and have just as loud, if not a louder and even more offensively preachy one-sided message than Hollywood, which I didn't even think was possible, until I saw the response from Ben Shapiro and his co-CEO Jeremy Boring about how the objective...
Is he really that boring?
No, in fact, he's actually kind of a douchebag, if I'm being completely honest.
Boring douchebag.
Something like that. But they pointed out how the overall objective of making movies and getting into entertainment for them was that they didn't want to make something that was morally obligatory for conservatives to watch, because then they would be just as bad as the liberal filmmakers who have a decent amount of control over Hollywood. They just wanted to make something that was purely for entertainment. Something that, yes, does inherently identify with their values, but can identify with values of anyone on the right, left, or the center. And even with some of the most negative reviews of their movies, people do at least acknowledge that there is no message.
They made other movies.
They have made other movies. So they made Run, Hide, Fight, which...
that was them.
Based on everything that is going on in the States right now,
Did you Drag Across Concrete?
No, but they are... The man helping them out producing these films is Dallas Saunier, who gave us Bone Tomahawk, Brawl in Cell Block 99, Standoff at Sparrow Creek, VFW. So many fantastic and underappreciated indie films that have an old school 70s vibe, but are still made with a certain modern appeal to them, which really got me excited when I found out that he was getting involved, because he's so good at making movies that are made for not even $1 million look like they were made for 10. He's really good with production value. He's incredibly good at respecting a director's creative control by letting them tell the stories they want to tell. If the script is good and doesn't need any finishing according to him, he'll make it. Which is a mentality I think most producers should really have at this point.
Can we talk about how this movie was described? Like, because you can only watch it in one spot. So you go to the dailywire.com or whatever that website is. You gotta pay the $14 so you can watch the movie. It's a rental or whatever. So you rent it, and it's like, witness the return in all caps, and you're like,
Yeah.
Wait, what's happening here?
Yeah,
what
the
is
majority... For those of you who somehow don't know about this and are watching this video anyways, this is the essential comeback of Gina Carano in terms of her acting career, because when she was on The Mandalorian, she hit peak superstardom, because then before that she just had small roles in stuff like Fast and Furious 6 or Deadpool. She did have a movie
she was in
of her
Fast
own.
6?
Yeah, she's the one who picks a cat fight with Michelle Rodriguez.
Sure, I remember that.
Or in Deadpool, where she's the one that kicks Colossus's ass.
Yeah, my brain is blanking on all of this right now.
Wow.
I've seen Deadpool.
Okay, I cannot believe I'm hearing this from you.
My brain has not had a Gina Carano section for many years. Even
okay,
when she
so
existed.
I'm guessing the only thing you really remember her before this was Mandalorian.
Yeah, she was on there for like a minute and then left.
No, she was on it for 2 seasons, and she was really good.
Yeah,
a
she
great
was, like,
Star
on a
Wars
planet,
heroine.
and then she like helped, and then she came back randomly, and then sort of just monster of the week stuff for Mando.
Yeah, but I mean, that's half the supporting cast. I don't really have a problem with that. What stood out was that she didn't feel like other Star Wars female leads. She wasn't strictly a diplomat or whatever. She was just a low-born warrior. And she was also more physically capable as opposed to the others who were more diplomatic but also knew how to shoot a gun.
I guess that's true, because I guess if you look at like bodybuilding women in Hollywood, you have Ronda Rousey, and she can't act at all.
No.
Oh, she's an expendable
Watch Furious 7.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
It's unbearable.
Like, even in that franchise, she can't even like act enough to fit in. It's like
no, she makes Cardi B look like a talented actress.
Cardi B says like 2 lines and disappears in Fast 9. And that's it. And I'm like, all right.
Well, she's coming back for Fast 10, apparently.
You know what? Sure. Go do what you got to do, Cardi B.
But in any case, over the course of the pandemic, as she has described in interviews, she went from being overall apolitical, not really caring about what went on the news, to all of a sudden reading perspectives from both sides, and she became considerably more, I want to say center-right, because while a lot of people have strictly labeled her as conservative, she's not homophobic or transphobic, even though a lot of people are making her out to be just based on a series of tweets. A lot of people demanded that she put her pronouns in on Twitter, and she wrote beep boop beep because she had no idea what the pronouns meant. It was funny. And then Pedro Pascal said, hey, this is what they're talking about. So she took it down and said, I misunderstood you guys. She still got into shit with Lucasfilm, but she didn't stop complaining. She kept speaking her mind. She questioned the mask mandates. She questioned a lot of the racial protests that were going on. And then there was an Instagram message where she talked about how before the Holocaust, Nazis in Germany were using rhetoric to turn people who were politically against them into the enemies and convince their neighbors to turn on each other. And a lot of people assumed that she was talking about how the left is demonizing right-wingers for who they voted for, what their opinions are. Because she used the Holocaust as a specific metaphor, that was the last straw. She was fired from Lucasfilm and Disney very publicly in a way that was kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't follow any of this.
Lucky you. I was still on Twitter when all this happened, and it was a fucking shit
I had
show.
Twitter in college because we needed it for an assignment, and I tweeted.
And you know what? That's the only thing that anyone should tweet.
Yeah, no, Gina Carano in this movie, I don't care. She does what she needs to do and shoot some guns. That's pretty much it. I don't think she's going to win any Oscar or nothing.
No, and the whole point of this isn't to win an Oscar. It's just to make a fun movie to watch. And that's really the only reason you should be making movies. I hate the fact that at least half of the movies, whether they're on streaming or in theaters, they feel obligated to have a complete one-sided message that is strictly towards liberal-minded audiences and insulting anyone who slightly disagrees with you whatsoever.
So, what is the message of Senior Year with Rebel Wilson?
Well, I'd have to watch Senior Year to understand that.
Oh, that was
But
hard
I'm
to get
willing
through.
to bet there are a lot of female empowerment.
I don't know. I just
jabs
sort of
and
watched
jokes.
it one day. I didn't think too hard about it. I fell asleep and woke up at the end. There was a cheerleading thing.
I said this on Letterboxd, but you watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's a really good film, but in the second half, there are a lot of jabs at like tearing down statues or how people who get turned into statues are false heroes and shit like that. And I just sat there and I went, are we seriously
Is that what
going
Chronicles
into
of
it?
Narnia is talking about? When they turn to stone or whatever?
Thankfully, well...
Is that what they're trying to do?
If it was made nowadays, it probably would have been. And weirdly enough, Doctor Strange breaks its own rules by having people get killed by statues being removed.
Wait, people die in this movie?
Left and right.
But, like, they can't kill Doctor Strange? He should have died, like, so many times.
Yes and no. You'd have to watch it to understand what
I'll ask you later if they kill Wanda.
Exactly.
That's what I need to know.
Long story short, everyone thought that she was gone for good, and then 36 hours later, it was announced that she and the Daily Wire were going to produce and make a movie together. Which, you know, at first I didn't think it was a good idea. I tweeted out, this was an opportunity for right-wingers and left-wingers to come together, sort things out, have a conversation, but you all fucking blew it. But... to be honest, when I started seeing reviews from other stuff like Shut In or The Hyperions, which I watched and reviewed...
oh, that was the one we were talking about.
And how these movies, in terms of quality, were actually really good, well-polished, and actually didn't pick a side politically. And I just sat there and went, you know what? Now I'm getting excited for this. And when I found out that they were making a John Ford-style Western out in the middle of Montana, and the fact that it is Gina Carano... I got really excited, and me personally... I
wouldn't say John Ford. I would say more Sergio Leone in its atmospheric.
Yeah,
because I think John Ford's more big, epic action sequences where Sergio Leone is stripped down character development with very long shots and atmosphere. And
that's the great thing about this. You can compare it to Leone, you can compare it to Ford or Peckinpah.
Which Ford movie are you comparing it to?
Just in the grand scheme of things, because there are a lot of establishment shots. Okay. There is a decent amount of action within this movie, and to be honest, I've seen this movie twice.
Really?
And I enjoyed it both times. Well, I watched it last night, too, just to see if a lot of it holds up, and in my opinion, it does. The pacing does...
oh my goodness.
It is a little iffy. Like, the first 20 minutes I don't really have a problem with, just because it's establishing the villains first and foremost. It's establishing the daily life of our main heroes and what the exact problem they have with living in Montana is. And then you get that shot where Carano is all by herself in the farm, and you see each of the gang's horses coming in one by one out of focus, and you just sit there and you go, oh,
but we're forgetting here, and the biggest problem with the pacing is it's not, you know, we gotta run to the store, we're living on credit, I got kids, whatever, hey, I bought you a gun for your birthday, sort of thing. It's, oh, no, my husband is away, let me stitch up some random person's legs so they can give me a MacGuffin for later in the film.
I like that scene.
It has nothing to do with the movie.
No, it doesn't, but...
I mean, if you could literally cut that out...
Here's the thing. What I like about that scene, and it kind of ties into Gina Carano's arc, the part of the reason she hates living in Montana is that there's this constant sense of danger no matter how mundane life is, and it's made her tired and exhausted, and she's willing to give up. Because there's this one unsettling scene involving one of her kids with a rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. The fact that there is danger inside of her own home. And then the very next day where she walks out of her barn and there are these Blackfoot citizens, one of whom has been seriously injured, and they are so desperate that they will take any help from anyone. The fact that there is danger left and right, and the fact that she has to forcibly get involved, it's taking a serious emotional toll on her.
I feel like this is sort of the licorice pizza problem, where things happen but the items don't tie back to it. If the people who were injured came back at the end, help her with scenario A, and even offered when she leveled the smoke signal. If they came back and tried to help,
I will give that
more. It would. I just want to see one more scene of them coming back and they're like, "Hey, we saw your signal. Are you okay?" Like that's it. That's all we need to tie it back. Fire a gun. Go get help. Whatever.
I will admit that it would have been nice if those soldiers did come back during the finale. Like even that's the one thing. That's the one problem I had with that one scene. But they also, without spoiling anything, do address it with the smoke signal. The fact that someone did see it, and without getting into specific details, it would have been completely pointless either way because these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah, I felt like the person who made this movie. I don't know who made this movie.
His name is Michael Polish, and he's more well-known for smaller indie stuff like Twin Falls, Idaho, and Norfolk. He and his brother wrote this book about DIY filmmaking that I've read a few pages about, and it's fine. It's not advice that you would give... it's not mind-blowing or anything. Robert Rodriguez has been saying shit like this for as long as he's been a filmmaker.
Okay, because my problem with the film was... everything felt like it was inspired from another film without having its own identity. Because the main villain constantly is quoting scripture. He's just Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, you know?
I didn't get that vibe.
I mean, every character felt like it. I've already seen them before on screen. They just sort of assembled them, and there they are.
That is a valid complaint. This is by no means an original film, and it's not really trying to be either. For me, there are a lot of cliched ingredients, but it's the overall execution of how they incorporate the visual trademarks of a Western and the kind of stock characters that you want to see in a movie like this. That made me entertained. For starters, this is a really good movie to look at. The cinematography features so many breathtaking landscape shots that look massive in scope, and they're simultaneously gorgeous to look at the way they portray the Montana landscapes, but they're also more dreary and pessimistic because of the muted color palette that they incorporate, which I thought was going to be a problem, especially the fact that they were definitely using
It reminds me a lot of did you ever see that film Lawless from 2011?
I don't think I have.
It was a very interesting Western.
Is that the one with Tom Hardy and Shia? Okay.
And it had a lot of great ideas, but they were ideas that were already used, and it didn't really bring anything fresh to the genre. It was by no means a bad movie. It just didn't really reinvent or take the elements that we know and do anything too super special with them.
Yeah,
and
but also what makes this so visually arresting to look at, and it also ties into the story, is that it makes these characters look like the size of ants. It shows how vast and empty the environment is, and because this is a home invasion Western, the fact that help is miles away and that our heroes are trapped in one location, there's a sense of agoraphobia and claustrophobia at the same time, where it doesn't matter. Well, you know what I mean. Claustrophobic when they're inside the barn, and agoraphobic whenever they do try to escape out into the open range where the villains can see them crystal clear. Like, there's a constant sense of tension to it. Especially during the opening action scene, where as soon as the villains are trying to sneak into the barn and you get their perspective, it also cuts away to Carano anticipating the fact that they're going to come and planning far ahead. And she is such a resourceful character, too.
It's interesting the way they portray violence in this film. So they'll show violence towards everybody, but y'all can't kill a cow on screen. Nope, gotta just, it's out of frame. You can't even have like a fake cow arm. It's interesting, but let's scalp a man. Yeah, that's fine.
The violence in this is out of control in a really cool way. The action scenes were easily the highlight of the film that had me gripping my fists. No shaky cam, no quick cutting whatsoever. They bring some subtle changes to each fight scene because this is a home invasion thriller, and if you were to do the same fight scene over and over again, it would get boring. So the very first sequence, it's very standard. They're looking for any open way, and she's shooting through all the windows. But then you get a great scene where she's shooting at them from a barn that they're taking refuge in, and they grab this stool that they rest their shotguns on to draw fire as the other ones sneak out. There are so many subtle changes to each action scene that give it this sense of freshness, but also unpredictability because you can't guess how smart these characters are. And I pointed this out in my podcast review of this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to complain about it. Because our main hero has never seen a battle before, and because our villains, long story short, want to keep her alive as possible, there are a lot of shots that just hit the debris. But it's just how much debris is within the frame, like broken glasses, debris within the field, planks of wood that are just shooting left and right and are 100% practical. And one thing that I liked about the violence, you get a lot of stuff. You get scalping, you get cauterization, you get people falling off their horses, and they're all done in one take to sell the illusion with really good Hollywood quality special effects, in my opinion.
My biggest thing about it is, like, it's like the same cliche with a horror movie. You can stab any person, but you can't stab a kid. You can't kill an animal. Like, you either show violence or you don't show violence. There's no one that's immune to violence if violence is in the film.
Dude, a baby's crib almost set on fire and almost got bit by a rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake was pretty far away. I think that the highlight of the film, though, is probably the middle. Once the villains have arrived and they have the home invasion and they have the various sequences. And I like and also hate how they're like, oh, well, we shot a bunch of bullets. I guess we have to go talk to her now because, it doesn't work.
Yeah, but I do like
that
as they're
hate that.
I do like that as they're talking, they're still trying to screw her over.
Yeah.
Like, one guy's talking and the other two are sneaking around the back. Or how one of them literally puts down his gun and comes over to her to try and emotionally manipulate her.
Yeah. And then, like, when they get the big finale, the way they execute the finale, I won't spoil for anyone who wants to watch it here, but I'm not a big fan of the way they go away from the setting. And it's okay, it's fine, and then they go back to the setting, and then, you know, that random MacGuffin comes into play, and then, yeah, that's it.
The MacGuffin was an extremely rewarding payoff, just based on how fucking disgusting and brutal that scene was.
It was a brutal scene, but at that point, like, when we see what was done to the husband, no spoilers here and such, and this and that, and we realize what the motivation of the killers is, I would have liked a little more connective tissue near the beginning, but I liked the mystery near the end.
Here's the thing. I've said this before and I'll say it again. My big problem with the movie, I think the reason the pacing is so off is because it doesn't know when to focus on the husband. And the husband is not in the movie enough to really make that big of an impression. And that's a big deal because the family is being terrorized by this gang because of his past actions.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Cowboy Cerrone is actually decent.
His name is Cowboy. I appreciate that fact.
Well, that's his UFC fighter name. And I was ready to hate him because, for one, if he's still in the UFC and acting, that's usually a bad sign, in my opinion. And plus, personal-wise, in terms of, like, stuff that happens in his personal life, he's a homophobic douchebag, and I had a really hard time with that.
I just knew his name was Cowboy, and I was watching a Western.
Well,
that was my whole thought process.
It beats Donald Cerrone,
because
that's his real
that
name.
Oh,
he was decent, but for starters, he's not in it enough to even be featured on the poster.
Is it bad that I care more about the villains because they can actually act and none of the main characters interest me? The villains do better acting than the leads.
I don't know. I really like the acting from the leads. But going back to Cowboy Cerrone's character, one, he's not in it that much, and two, when we do see him, it's scenes that are meant to be a breather in between the shootouts, which I kind of understand.
I thought that's what they're doing with the talking and the no guns between the shootout and the sneaking around.
That's the other thing. Like,
so
those
those
scenes already exist.
Distraction tactics. I don't know. Oh, I'm in town. Oh, no. A prostitute. I'll talk to her. I have to go home.
Okay.
Tragic.
Yeah, the scenes where he is in town, he's actually pretty unlikable because while the decisions he makes are nowhere near as bad as the ones that these villains are after him for, and you do know for a fact that he has expressed remorse for his actions, has put his life behind him, and is willing to atone for it whatsoever. I bought that. But he still makes a lot of really dumb and desperate decisions that, yes, anyone in the Old West would probably do. But it didn't make me... He's the one who's saying we need to be out here to build a life for ourselves. And the actions that he does in this town just don't reflect that.
No, he's wasting all their money.
Yeah, and again, it's important because his wife is putting everything on the line and has to be constantly on the move, constantly thinking of an escape plan. But honestly, Gina Carano's performance, in my opinion, is the emotional heart of the film. And, you know, before Mandalorian, she was just another professional athlete turned actor, in my opinion, where her physique is really good. And she is badass to watch, especially in Deadpool and Fast and Furious 6. But her acting was always pretty flat until Jon Favreau casted her in The Mandalorian and proved, in my opinion, that she had a wider range than she was capable of. So I was cautiously looking forward to see what she would do in this, because this is arguably her toughest role. For the sake of realism, she can't all of a sudden be a martial arts expert. So, as opposed to shooting and firing guns, she has to rely a lot on her body language and line delivery in terms of her performance. And in my opinion, she did a fantastic job.
I'm gonna be honest, I laughed at some of the first couple lines she delivered were so poorly delivered.
Which ones were you talking about?
Like, just, like, her look. Like, let's take, for example, bad guys in cabin. She's making them breakfast for some reason. I don't know why.
Because they're from St. Louis, so
but they insulted her and her family and didn't give her any respect, so she invited them in anyway. It's very confusing.
I didn't say that. Well, the henchmen.
They're like, "Oh, who's the man of the house? We can only talk to the man of the house." And I was like, okay.
Unfortunate traditional customs.
So regardless, they're in the house, and the guy's like, I know how to hold a baby. She's like, her facial reaction was like, I'll have a burrito.
Like I said,
it has nothing to do.
Like I said,
it's not good.
I think it comes down to traditional customs that they just felt they had to be open and honest about.
But they literally stated in the beginning of the film, oh, we're living off borrowed food. We don't have enough. Then why are you giving food to complete strangers? They're offering to buy food from you.
Who are on their own and have less, and supposedly have less resources than she does.
Yeah, but still, I mean, we know she's a nice person. She raises a family. We don't need to really... I just did not buy her acting.
I don't know. I really liked her performance. It is incredibly subdued and stoic, and there are moments where she does look bored. And it wasn't until, as the movie progresses, that made me realize what I had said earlier about how the constant danger hasn't made her angry so much as tired and completely devoid of any energy, until an immediate threat comes towards her family that makes her realize that fighting figuratively and literally to survive is how we become stronger as people, because you're more prepared to face the problems once they come straight towards you. And I do like that their constant presence requires her to be constantly on her feet thinking of a variety of different plans. And in my opinion, she's resourceful without being too smart. For every ingenious plan that she comes up with, and the plans that she has, I'll just flat out say it, I wouldn't have come up with myself. They do have unintended consequences that I wouldn't have guessed. You want to start a smoke signal? Okay, but your house may unintentionally get caught on fire. And I just sat there and went, fuck, why didn't I... That's probably why I didn't think of that.
Yeah, the whole town just ignored it, except for one neighbor.
Look, they don't establish how far away the town is from certain people, and for all we know, that could have been a guy who was on his horse and just happened to be in the area. I do like that they trust you to fill in the dots for yourself on how this town, this environment works. And I will admit that the scene stealer of the movie is definitely Nick Searcy as the villain, who hits just the right amount of charismatic over the top. And again, it's not a character that we haven't seen before. He's the charismatic psychopath who is so polite to you as he's about to cut your throat open. And all of his henchmen are just there to be intimidating thugs, and they do their part well. Tyler Fischer is cartoonishly over the top as the bearded drunk, no problem there. Heath Freeman, his performance actually got better the second time around, because I actually noticed him giving those cold-hearted and sadistic stare downs that every time he opened his mouth.
You remember the names of the actors in the movie.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they have really stupid names. Like, the drunk is literally named Longhair. The psychopath of the group is named Gold Teeth, which I didn't even notice his Gold Teeth until the second time.
For me, there was Hat Guy with long hair and a hat, and other guy with a hat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I thought they were.
But, like, Heath Freeman stood out, and I watched them behind the scenes where they were talking about how, writing-wise, he was essentially the man of few words, which made him more intimidating, and it did kind of stick with me. And there's this one individual moment that he has with Carano that just left me cold for a really long time, and long story short, the payoff was just so rewarding in my opinion. But the henchman that stood out to me the most was Gabriel-Kane Day-Lewis as the youngest member of the group, who was much more charismatic than his own boss.
Oh, it's long-haired dude.
No, the kid with the hat.
That's the kid with the hat. Kid. Ah, there's so many people in this movie with hats.
Whatever. But long story short, I do like that he spends most of the time in the background listening and observing to Nick Searcy and kind of learning step by step what kind of plan he's getting himself into, what he can learn from it, how he can contribute to the plan. And he's so good at manipulating people. There's this one moment where, again, puts his gun away, walks up to the nearest window, and tries to sweet talk his way to Carano. And the way he does it really had me question just what... It made me question why he would be willing to go so far just to do this one thing for his master. And upon second viewing, there was a line that I missed where Nick Searcy says, "You remember when your pappy and I were riding out during the war?" And I just sat there and went, "Oh, duty based on honor to your father." That's good. I like that. But What makes Searcy intimidating is that he's able to justify his actions with the use of scripture, and the fact that his motivation, which is slowly revealed piece by piece over the course of the film, is an understandable motivation. He has been screwed over, and the people who wronged him did get away without justice. But considering how brutal he is, and the fact that he uses scripture as an excuse to commit his evil deeds, he would have done it regardless.
I got bored by this movie.
I did not. I was mostly on the edge of my seat, except for when they cut away to Donald Cerrone.
I like the sound mixing. I think the wind is very well done.
Yeah, something that really
good atmosphere.
Something that really snuck up on me was the fact that until the very last scene, there is no musical score whatsoever.
No, it's great.
And the ambient noise coming from within each scene, yes, is absolutely atmospheric. And it makes each gunshot, each death scene feel a little bit more impactful because there's nothing but dead silence before and afterwards, which I thought was really cool. And Saulnier does that a lot with his productions. Standoff at Sparrow Creek, same thing. One song during the end credits and that was it. Dragged Across Concrete, every song came from a radio that was playing in a car or a restaurant or something like that. It's an old school 70s B-movie type of thing that I really appreciate. You don't see very often in movies anymore because if you use it wrong, it can get boring after a while.
Yeah, I fell asleep and had to start it again.
Well, I'm sorry that I...
No, it's fine. I'm glad I watched it because I like to watch Westerns, but I just would have tightened up the scenes a little bit more. I think there's a lot of great stuff. You trim out a bunch in the middle. I think when they're doing the gunplay and stuff, just bring the gunshot down a tiny bit, decibel-wise, because they were really loud. And then
I was the only one in my house, so I couldn't really...
Yeah, I was trying to watch it on my speakers here.
I was wondering how you were going to be able to watch it anyways.
Yeah, I streamed it on my computer, so... Okay. And I think that the scenery is great, but I think like maybe one more draft to the script really could have tightened it up. And I think if we're going to have characters that come into play and do anything in the script, whether it's the random prostitute in the town or the neighbor or any of these, I'd like to see the neighbor in the town with the guy, talking to him. Hey, I'm headed back. Hey, can you check on my family for me? Like, just a little bit more of connective tissue to make these events all play together.
I don't know. For me, taking that stuff out of it felt it a little bit more mysterious and more against the hero's struggle, because the fact that they don't know all of these things makes it a little bit more terrifying, in my opinion.
I would like to.
And before I forget, the kid in this movie actually did see an Instagram story of my podcast review. All things considered, he for once was not a useless kid. He actually knew how to handle a gun. He actually knew how to take care of his little sister.
Yeah, he was in it for a little bit, and he was like hiding and moving furniture and.
Yeah, which as opposed to making dumb and stupid.
He was all right. He was fine. He's a kid.
He's the one piece that I would have liked more information of, because without giving anything away, there's one thing that he has to do entirely on his own, and. Again, I won't spoil it, but he succeeds.
Yeah, make
and
coffee.
I would have liked to have seen... Fuck off with that.
That's a funny scene.
It's the 1880s. You know how difficult technology
You're a man
was?
now. It's time to learn to make coffee. No, don't boil it. You've got to put a mesh.
Folks, it wasn't as overdramatic as that. If anything, it was incredibly subdued acting-wise, and that was something that I wasn't expecting, but... in my opinion, was pleasantly surprised. I had a really good time with Terror on the Prairie.
I'm glad you liked it.
I love the atmosphere. I love the shootouts. I love the performances from Gina Carano, Nick Searcy, Heath Freeman, and Gabriel-Kane Day-Lewis. I would have liked more of a family connection between wife and husband, because the producers are so convinced that their relationship is the emotional core of the film, when in reality, it's Gina Carano and her children being the emotional core, but... that was enough for me. And in all seriousness, I'm going to give this movie, despite all of its problems, it has a ton of entertainment value, for me anyways, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
It's a movie.
And Josh doesn't do ratings, but I think you've already gathered his opinion on it.
I tried to like this. I really tried.
That's totally valid. I was worried about how you were going to feel about it, because I know you're not really into slow burns and stuff like that.
If I wanted a slow burn, I would just... pump hot sauce in my veins.
Which is weird. You like Dragged Across Concrete, and it's almost 3 hours.
Yeah, but I like Vince Vaughn.
So what? He's not in all of it.
Yeah, but it's just a little more interesting for me. So.
Yeah, but
and
in
I like
any
Lawrence
case,
of Arabia. It's a little more interesting.
In any case, whether I like this movie or not, I'm still going to continue to support the Daily Wire movies because we need an alternative to Hollywood. And we need, for all the complaints about how we need to be more diverse and inclusive, it is great that we're doing that. But diversity of thought is diversity, and you need to acknowledge that regardless.
You could just be Netflix. Everything is diverse for no particular reason.
No, it really isn't.
None of those, they're like, we're diverse. Why?
Only
because of reasons.
Hey, I'm just glad they put out that cultural memo saying, hey, all you left-wingers, we're going to make some stuff that you don't like. And,
I just don't understand how anything connects to anything in these Netflix movies. They're just very random. We're like,
exactly.
All right, we need to put all the stereotypes in the movie from 2022 we can get.
And we're going to call it progress.
I mean, just like, if you're going to put the characters in, like, give them something to do. Don't just make them a stereotype. Like, have
yeah, and that's the other reason I like the characters in this movie. They're not resourceful and likable because they're appealing to a demographic. It's because of the writing, whether you find them well written or not.
I don't.
I know. And quite honestly, I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'm a tough movie critic.
You liked Kingsman for some reason.
Kingsman was great.
No, it wasn't.
It was fantastic.
See, and that's the thing. If we can disagree on a movie, you guys can disagree with other people on a shit ton of stuff. Whether you like this movie or not, you got to admit, you don't have to be on one political spectrum or the other to enjoy it. And that's what entertainment needs to be, an escape from daily life, not a constant reminder of why it sucks.
I love being reminded my life sucks.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not. Okay, there we go.
That's like heavy.
Because like we've ranted about cancel culture. We've ranted about
cancel culture for a week. I took it back.
What?
Exactly.
What do you mean you took it back?
Didn't want it anymore.
Oh right. Yeah, he's dealt with it firsthand, so he knows how it goes.
I don't care anymore.
That's exactly what you need to do. Not care. But in any guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Thank you for putting up with my constant requests for you to watch it with me.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm glad I watched it. I just don't get it.
That's valid. We can't like everything. If you guys have seen Terror on the Prairie, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. And before I forget, my podcast is this movie Left, Right, or Good? A podcast dedicated to movies exactly like this, where you take movies made by conservatives, liberals, libertarians, communists, whatever. Judge them as movies first, based strictly on entertainment and quality, not politics.
Oh, man.
I put out my podcast review, which, in my opinion, is one of the best that I've ever made. And the production company behind this, Bonfire Legend, was very nice and grateful enough to show my review on their Instagram story, which is how the kid in this movie and a storyboard artist actually witnessed it. Nice. So to whoever runs Bonfire Legends Instagram, thank you so much. I am incredibly grateful and speechless. I can't believe that tagging them actually worked. That usually nothing happens.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't like your movie, dudes. I tried.
Something tells me you might like Shut-In or Hyperions. I'm
Probably.
Not sure.
I'll give it a shot. I've watched a lot of regrettable films.
In any case, let us know in the comments below what you thought of Terror on the Prairie if you've seen it, or what is your favorite Daily Wire original film?
Barney's Great Adventure.
Fucking hell.
That's his next review. Check that out. Link
I'm going to take my time on that one.
Oh, it's a masterpiece, I hear. Tyler loves it. Favorite movie of all time.
It was the first movie I saw in theaters. Like, I was 2, okay? I didn't have any control over that. In any case, let us know in the comments below. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. And check out his channel in the description below. We will have, quite possibly, the worst video that we have ever made in our lives.
Oh, it was a spicy one.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Bye.